those who have not spent considerable time practicing these principles will for a while forget and thereby delay the experience of good. And this is what they will forget. We do not look to each other for anything, and that means husbands and wives, parents and children. The very earliest we can in the morning, we open ourselves to God's grace and consciously realize that we live not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit. We live not by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, nor do we live by the favor of individuals or the goodwill of individuals, nor do we live by our place or position in life. We live by the grace of God. Now, if we are to live in the mystical consciousness, we must abide in this, that our expectancy is always and only from the spiritual source that is within us, the spiritual life, the spiritual spring, the spiritual waters, bread, meat, wine, water. We must abide in this truth that I have meat the world knows not of. And then be careful that we are not looking to a person, a thing, an organization, a relationship for it. Now, when we have thoroughly understood this oneness, thoroughly realized as if I were the only person in the world, and yet my good must flow, because it must flow from within me, not to me from anyone, but from me, through me. When I have done that, it makes no difference that my good will come in through people. It may come through you. It may come through other students. It may come through, but it doesn't have to. There's no law that says so. There's no law that says I must derive my income from my work. No law, no rule says so. Because within me must be the complete realization that my manna can fall from the sky if it's necessary. Ravens can bring my food. My supply can come through 1,000 different directions. Therefore, I need not look to anyone. Yet, of course, there must always be that sense of gratitude to those through whom it comes, but not the feeling that it comes from them. It comes through them. It comes from the center of my being, because remember, the Word is I, and I is infinite, and there is nothing and no one outside of me. Therefore, all that is to be mine must flow from the I of my being. Then when I do that, I can be as free as I wish to be in sharing, and just as free in receiving, grateful for the opportunity to share, grateful for receiving, but never for a moment moving to left or right from my inner conviction that I and my Father are one. And my good is derived from that relationship. The relationship, I and my Father are one, is the source of my good. So with you. And The importance of this is that when you demonstrate it, you are in the position of demonstrating it for those who come to you. What are the problems of those that come to you? You will discover, you could boil it down to personal sense, but personal sense means there are two or more people. There can be man and wife, there can be parent and child, there can be partners in business, there can be capital and labor relationship, there can be all kinds of human relationships, and every one of them at some time or other is the source of discord and inharmony. And if you are called upon for help, you have only one remedy to give spiritually, and that is your realization of I. I and my Father are one, and in that relationship is infinite relationship, the only relationship there is. And so we don't have me and a God, and we don't have me and a partner, and we don't have me and another person at the conference table. We only have the I that I am infinitely expressed. Then when we sit down at the conference table, a unity unfolds, a oneness of thought unfolds, a mutualness unfolds. But it does so not because anyone has psychologized it, but because someone has realized there are not two at the conference table, there is but one, and I am that one. I, God, am that one. I constitute me, and I constitute you. I, God, constitutes individual beings. And until you reduce the relationships of everyone to one, you are still dealing with a human world and trying to patch it up. Now you can succeed temporarily, just as we have had the end of wars temporarily, and then the start of other wars. But for permanent peace to be established in your household, in your community, in your business, in your profession, there is only one way. Don't have a patient, a practitioner, and a God. Come to the realization that I am the only one. And when you are abiding in that I-ness, the infinite individuality appearing as two or more people will be one. One in purpose, one in solution of problems, one in will. Now, this embodies for a while a discipline, a training, because every time we look out here humanly, we see two or more. And what do we find? This one has a will in this way, and this one has a will in that way. Someone else has another will, and you sit three people down together, each with a will of their own, and you've got a war. But the solution to it from your standpoint as a practitioner is, don't have three people to the deal, or 33. Resolve them into one by realizing there's only one life, there's only one mind, there's only one law, there's only one spirit, there's only one will. And I am is that one. So whether I am is Joel, I am is Bill, I am is Mary, it is still I am. It is still the one that I am, and I am that I am. Then, you see, you have resolved this thing. to where you don't have patient, practitioner, and God, nor do you have 3 people or 33 people, each with a will of their own. In a spiritual activity, you do not bring 2 together to make them one. You realize there was only one to begin with, and I am that one. The I of me is that one. Then you can say, thy will be done. Thy will be done, meaning that I, which is the I of each of us. And when thy will is done, it is made manifest in all who are concerned. In this work, health is only one of the problems that come to us, and a great deal of the health problems are caused by personal relationship problems. Unhappiness in the home, unhappiness in business, and this works on the system eventually to bringing ill health. So try to see that every problem that is brought to you for solution involves reducing the appearance to one, and that one, I. In your own individual experience, when you are dealing with people and can realize there is only one will, and the I of me is that will, or the I of you. There is only one will. There is only one desire. There is only one interest. Within the I that I am, there cannot be conflicting interests, so there's no use of trying to reconcile them. Do not try to reconcile interests, because this is psychology. This is a human patching up of the seam. There are no conflicts of interest because I am one. And in that oneness, there can be no conflict. The more you ponder in your meditations the great truth of withinness, the closer you come to living the spiritual life, the more you are able to perceive that it is He that is within me that doeth the works, or it is He that is within me that performs or perfects. It is He that is within me that guides, leads, directs, and then realize, of course, it isn't He, because that would mean He and me. The He that we're speaking of is the I that I am, the selfhood, the one infinite divine selfhood that I am and you are. You begin to live from a different standpoint, not the standpoint of getting, achieving, accomplishing, but the standpoint of being and sharing. Being. Nothing to come from without, all to flow from within. Is the feeling of release or click we wait for at the end of our meditation sufficient to start the flow of spiritual good, or must there be, in addition, further awareness of the presence, such as the still small voice? That you have to find from your own experience. Actually, once we feel that click, once we have an inner assurance or awareness, nothing further is necessary. But if you find that that is not resulting in the added things, the fruitage, then go further and see if there is anything in your particular case requiring a further step. You see, there are no formulas in the spiritual work. There are principles, but there are no formulas. And for that reason, each one must take the principles and work with them in an individual way and bring them forth in an individual way. There are times when we are called upon for help and literally nothing happens or takes place, no treatment is given, no thought is given, and yet most wonderful things take place. On the other hand, there are times when we're called for help and it takes a half minute, 3/4 of a minute, a whole minute before spiritual realization takes place. But then there are times when you have to sit up all day and all night before you attain the degree of awareness necessary for some particular case. So you see how impossible it is to outline. There are many, many, many times when calls come and it's absolutely unnecessary to think a thought. Instantly that feeling is within, that assurance. And yet how well I know it, that there are times when it takes hours and hours and hours before the necessary realization takes place. That may be for any one of a dozen reasons, and the reasons are unimportant as far as we're concerned. What counts is this: by their fruits ye shall know them. If you are meditating, if you feel you're getting the click, and nothing is happening outside, no improvement, no harmonies, no sign of grace, be assured you haven't gone far enough. And that doesn't mean that you haven't gone far enough every time. It means you haven't gone far enough that time. The next time may only be the matter of the blink of an eye or a half minute of meditation. This work is wholly spontaneous. No one can ever write a formula. No one can ever write out a treatment. No one can use a treatment that they used this morning or yesterday, because this work does not lie in the realm of the mind. I understand, of course, that if I were now to pass out papers among you and say, write me a treatment for supply, I haven't any doubt that each one of you would get 100%. But what I'd like to do is follow up next week and see if you were demonstrating that treatment on supply. And the chances I would find that not many of you were getting the fruitage of that treatment. Why? The treatment would be in the realm of your mind and your knowledge, and that is not spiritual power. Spiritual power is realization. Now, if you can realize the truth of anything in a moment, that's all you need. If some particular problem is obstinate and you have to continue with it for hours or days, that's what it must be. And there are cases that we work with for months. I've seen some for years before a healing is brought out. I know the answer. There hasn't been a transformation of consciousness. And healing, certainly the healings of the major things, require that there be a transformation of consciousness, a renewing of the mind, a shifting from the material state of consciousness to the spiritual. But whenever that yielding comes, whenever you begin to see the difference in attitude of your patient that has been a long time with a problem, and you see a whole change of nature in them, you'll know the healing is close at hand. So it is that we have no way of knowing when we accept a case whether we're going to have an instantaneous healing or a long drawn-out healing. We only know that we are supposed to live up to our highest sense of treatment and realization. Probably that is one of the reasons I said to you before, please do not ever accept praise. It's the most dangerous thing you can do, because, I don't mean that when someone thanks you to say, like the story of old, you know this one? A lady was healed of a very serious ill, and her husband was so grateful he came to the practitioner to offer him a check, and he said to the practitioner, I've just come to thank you, and I want you to know how deeply I appreciate. And the practitioner says, don't thank me. I didn't do it, God did. The man says, I was going to leave you a check, but I think I'll take it to God. Let's be quite that absolute, because you do have something to do with the healing. You are an instrument. You're dedicating your life to the spiritual realization. So you can accept thanks, but don't accept praise. It's quite a different thing, accepting thanks and accepting praise. Because praise would mean that you really have a big understanding, or you're deeply spiritual. And please don't let anyone kid you along that line. Nothing can be further from the truth. It isn't your understanding that's going to do it, and humanly you're not quite spiritual. So let us not accept praise in that direction. Always let us remember this. There's only one of us, and that's I. So we really weren't so smart in bringing out a healing, were we? Because if there was only I didn't need healing. We can be thanked for dedicating our lives so as to bring out this truth, but we can't be praised for our understanding or for our spirituality or for some other quality that someone thinks they see in us, which really they're seeing in that spiritual nature of our being. Now, you have a tremendous function to play in healing work. This is one reason you can accept thanks. If you are alert in the message of the infinite way, you will not concern yourself with patients. I mean by that the name or identity of the patient or their problem. But when you are called upon, you will instantly lift your eyes and realize this is a malpractice. This is Antichrist. This is hypnotism. This is the arm of flesh or nothingness. This is a belief of a selfhood apart from God, or a law apart from God. Handle it as an impersonal experience. Don't handle it as a person who has to be healed. Don't handle it as a person who has to be reformed. Handle it as an impersonal appearance. Judge not after appearances. Judge righteous judgment. Always be so alert that you never take the person into your thought. You never take their claim into your thought. You know that since I am the only being, any other appearance is a state of hypnotism. Any other appearance is a mesmeric suggestion of a selfhood apart from God. It's a universal belief in two powers. Don't be tempted to go to God to use a power to heal somebody. Don't be tempted to take a patient up to God You're in duality. But hold to this fact that since I is infinite, incorporeal, spiritual being, this that is appearing to me is just a state of universal malpractice, a universal hypnotism, a nothingness. Then you will see how beautifully healings can take place. Not only that I learned in the very beginning of my work, but I've had 30 years to watch this, that impersonalization and nothingization is the secret of spiritual healing. God isn't going to favor you or me because we're sick. There are billions of people sick that God isn't concerned with. God isn't going to favor you or me because we're practitioners who obey the Ten Commandments. There are loads of people all over the world doing that. There just isn't any God to do those things. There is a God, the I of my being and the I of your being. This is God. And God is incorporeal, and God is spiritual, and God is immortal, and God is eternal, and a treatment won't make God that way. Neither will a treatment make you that way, for I and my Father are one and not two. The minute you have God, and you're out of a spiritual healing treatment. You have to have God as individual, you and me, and then say, well, then what of this appearance? What of this sin? What of this disease? What of this unemployment? What of this lack? What of this unhappiness? State of hypnotism. The mesmeric belief in two powers. The belief of selfhood apart from God. Oh yes, the word law. Did you ever stop to think of the word law? How many kinds of law we have on earth? But there is only one law. If God is spirit and God is law, the only law there is spiritual. And you can break any kind of a material law, mental law, or legal law by knowing there is only one law and only one lawgiver. That law or lawgiver may seem to be a judge on the bench or a jury. But don't be fooled by appearances. No judge is deciding the case, and neither is a jury. There is only one being, and I am that being. There is only one law, and I am that law. And then you'll find justice. And no other way. If you look to man for justice, you will fail. If you look to man for your supply, you will fail. If you look to man for love, you will fail. But if you realize all is embodied in the I that I am, appearing as infinite persons, you're all right. But that's only the appearance. Now, you can heal. There isn't anyone in this room that can't heal. All it takes is the realization of this truth. I is the truth of being, and it's the only truth of being. There is no other. That's why when the Master was asked by Pilate, what is truth? And what could he do but turn away? How can you say to temporal power, I am the truth? Be like telling that to the traffic cop, wouldn't it? Now, the fact is I am. I am the truth, and anything else is a suggestion of the carnal mind, this belief of two-ness, duality. So if you want to heal, don't go thinking of the man, woman, or child that's involved. Don't think of how long they've been ill or the nature of their illness. All of that just perpetuates it. Turn from the appearance and realize the nature of I, and then what of this appearance? And there you have it, the arm of flesh. Really a hypnotic belief in two-ness, a mesmeric suggestion of a selfhood apart from God. This belief of the carnal mind is so strong that it operates hypnotically in human consciousness. But once you recognize that, you have nullified it. It isn't a disease, it isn't a condition, it isn't a person, it's a suggestion, or it is a temptation. When Jesus faced his 3 temptations, he turned on the tempter. Get thee behind me, Satan. He did not argue with the temptations. Don't ever forget that. He didn't deny them or come to grips with them, nor did he try to overcome them or remove them. He looked right past the temptations to the tempter. And that's what we do. We don't care whether the temptation is a sin, a disease, a lack, unemployment, or bad weather. We look right through the temptation to the tempter. And the tempter is the carnal mind, or belief in 2 powers. The tempter is a universal belief in a selfhood apart from God. The tempter is a universal belief in a law apart from God, a life apart from God. And we look right at that and then say, get thee behind me, Satan, thou art the arm of flesh. But remember this, if you start battling with evil, you're going to lose the battle. If you find yourself passing a jewelry window and you start arguing with yourself whether you should reach in and grab or not, you're going to lose. Eventually you'll reach in. If not the first time, the second or the third. Do not grapple with the particular form of error. Remember, that's only the decoy. Behind that form of error is the tempter. And that's not a power. You don't have to overcome it. You have to recognize it as the tempter, the nothingness, the belief in 2 powers. And then you're done with it. That's your treatment. Then you can sit down if you like and rejoice within yourself in your inner communion with God and enjoy the presence of God. But remember, your healing work is done when you have looked through the temptation to the tempter. And when you have recognized that tempter as carnal mind, mortal mind, arm of flesh, give it any name you like, hypnotism, mesmerism, give it any name you like, only when you give it a name, drop it. Because that name, whatever it is, must mean nothingness. I explained to a class many, many years ago that we would be completely free of all trouble on earth today if it hadn't been for the misinterpretation of one word. One word in the religious world has perpetuated all of the evils of this world, and that word is devil. Had it been understood in translation as it was understood in the beginning, the devil isn't a person but an impersonal temptation or tempter, we'd all be free today. We never would be grappling around with sin, disease, and death. We wouldn't be fighting alcohol and drugs and all the rest of these things, because we'd look right back and see what they are: devil, evil, impersonal sense, and the nothingness of it would be so apparent, would be over. The only reason evil appears tough to us, it appears as a person. We always have to deal with a person. And oh, they're so hard to deal with. I gave it up long ago. I can't win when there's another person involved. When I want to win, I have to go into a sanctuary all alone. I can lick myself. Do you see now the nature of infinite way healing work? The whole of infinite way healing work depends on two things. Do you know the nature of God? Do you know the nature of evil? If you do, you know the nature of prayer, for prayer is knowing the truth. And you only know the truth when you know the nature of God as I, all-inclusive being. And when you know the nature of evil, not the nature of sin, not the nature of disease, not the nature of unemployment, the nature of evil. The evil is behind those forms. We've always been defeated because we battled with the forms and left the substance of the forms intact. We did not lay the axe at the root of the tree. We lopped off a little sickness here and a little sin here and a little unemployment here, and we left dear old mortal mind right behind it, as if it were a power ready to spring forth in another form of error tomorrow. Whereas, to perceive the nature of the tempter, the universal illusion, the universal mesmerism, and since I is omnipotence, see it as no power. You can even call it devil if you like, as long as you'll see the devil as nothingness, as non-power, as impersonal, meaning without person. Without person, in whom, on whom, or through whom to operate. How more impersonal could they make it than to give it a tail and cloven hoofs? That ought to take it out of the range of being personal. But in translation, they didn't see it, so they made God and devil opposites. Even dear old Paul suffered his way through life by seeing the carnal mind as enmity against God. It isn't any such thing. The carnal mind isn't enmity against anything. The carnal mind is an illusion. How can an illusion fight anything or be an enemy of anything? The carnal mind is purely an illusion. And the moment you recognize that, you are doing healing work. Because all we're suffering from is the belief that evil is personal. Well, you'll notice in the writings that I refer to the fact that there are principles of the infinite way which are unique to this message. And here you have some of them. This I and this nature of evil. And of course that changes our concept of treatment and prayer, because you see, treatment has nothing to do with persons anymore, and prayer has nothing with an attempt to get God to do something. So it changes the whole nature of your understanding of prayer, of treatment, of the healing ministry. And watch now as you read the books again that you have and see the whole new meaning they will give to you in the light of this. To each of you, this class will have brought something individual and special. But to me, this moment is the most important part of it. To me, this is the nub of the whole situation, without which none of the rest of this class is worthwhile. To me, the whole class is, but because of this. If I didn't have this firmly grasped, that there is only I is infinite, I is self-contained, self-sustained, I have meat the world knows not of, I have bread, meat, wine, and water. I incorporate within my own being all my needs unto the end of the world. I will never leave me nor forsake me. I will be with me to the end of the world, and I is the source of the divine grace that cares for me. Neither life nor death can separate me from the I that I am. The I that I am existed before I was born. The I that I am will transcend the grave. And that I will accompany me forever and forever. And any appearance of duality, of discord, of inharmony, or even of human harmony, all of this I recognize as the carnal mind. The arm of flesh. Impersonal nothingness. Appearing as form. And unhappily, usually as the form of a person, or the condition of a person. Impersonal eyes, nothing eyes. Never be satisfied with your treatment until you've disposed of God and the patient. And when you've done that, and you're left with I, infinite being, and then can look out at the appearance and say, devil, be gone. And not fight it. Not fight it. Be sure above all else that you do not physically or mentally fight discord. You lose. Your salvation lies in seeing behind the particular appearance. Well, yes, this comes to me right now. If I look out here with my human eyes, I see physical beings. And if I let my gaze stay here, I can't help you in any way. I can't help, I can't heal, I can't reform, I can't forgive, I can't uplift. The only way that I can lift you out of mortality is if I have the discernment to see behind the appearance and realize I am there. That I which is God, infinite being. And so it is. If I look out here to see young people, old people, sick people, well people, if I look to see unemployment, all of these other things, I'm licked. But when I can look through that appearance and see behind it the fabric of error, the fabric of nothingness, the substance of all evil, a belief in two powers, a belief in a selfhood apart from God, universal belief, not yours, not mine, then you can be freed. Then you can free others. But look through the appearance to see God, and look through the other appearance of evil to see the substance of evil, the carnal mind or nothingness. Above all, be sure of this. Don't have two powers. Don't go around looking for that God power, that truth, to do something to mortal mind. It won't. Don't look for truth to overcome error. It won't. Just remember the truth is infinite, and there is no enmity against truth. 2 times 2 or 4, there's no enmity against that. What about 2 times 2 is 5? It's no enmity against 2 times 2 is 4. It might be enmity against the believer, but not against the truth. There is no enmity to truth. There is no opposition to truth. The devil is not the opponent of God. And I think that's it. Thank you.